Good to go?
My name is Tyrell Stevens. Today is January 20th, 2026, regular school board meeting. The time is 6:07, and I would like to call this meeting to order. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Tyrell Stevens.
Present.
Najeeba Inglebu. Angel Newman. Present. Michelle Fox. Present. Corey Jones.
Present.
Mireya Mendoza. Jenny Mercado. Heidi Silverio. Present. Stephen Williamson.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Please stand for the pledge.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1.3, superintendent update. Superintendent, you have the floor.
Testing, okay. Welcome everyone to the January school board meeting. Thank you for joining us this evening. I hope that you all had a safe and warm following the weekend storm. I hope you all keeping warm at home. Make sure you check on your neighbors and your loved ones to make sure that everyone is well, especially after the storm that we had. I would like to take a moment to thank our operations team and the maintenance team and staff from ABM for working so hard to making sure that the schools were being able to open up today. So I want to say thank you to that entire team. We don't mind giving them a big round of applause. I know last week the mayor signed an executive order prohibiting the use of city property for ICE enforcement activities, and he reaffirmed that Providence will continue to remain a safe and welcoming city to all residents. The executive order prohibits the use of the city-owned property for civil immigration enforcement purposes, ensuring that the spaces are used solely to serve our community and provide essential services. Our schools should and will continue to be a safe haven for our students and their families. We appreciate and stand with the mayor in his effort to protect all our communities. Last spring, the district drafted a SOP, which is a standard operational procedure. In the event that ICE officers came to our schools, we have the principals and everyone has been trained on what to do, what to say, what to look for. So we're pretty well informed of what we need to do as a district. We have our lawyer legal on standby. If anything happens, they will be the first one on scene to make sure that our students and anyone that's in one of our facilities are safe until we are able to recognize that they have a judicial warrant signed correctly before any kind of entry into any of the buildings. I don't want to put a sense of making sure that everyone feels safe, but there's things that we have to follow, there's laws that we have to follow, so I want to make sure that we follow those laws at the same time. I would also like to share that riot accountability results released this fall show that 5 PPSD schools increased in their star rating, bringing the percent of 2 stars or above schools to almost 64%. So that's a big accomplishment. Let's give ourselves a big round of applause. This clearly demonstrates that the Providence Public School District, PPSD, as you know, has studied progress. Since we've been under the state intervention, we've been showing progress and moving in the right direction. We know there's a lot of work that needs to continue to happen to make sure that the district gets to the point where I said, when I first started this almost 4.5 years, I said Providence becomes the destination for education. And slowly but surely moving forward, we're making those changes and making sure that we continue to march our orders and our vision to make sure that our students have every opportunity to be successful and get the top-notch education that they deserve from our Providence Public Schools as well. The biggest achievement goes to Classical High School, who increased from a 4-star school to a 5-star school. Big round of applause, improving both achievement and growth in English language proficiency. There are 5 other schools that saw an increase in the star rating. So we'd like to recognize those 5 schools. Anthony Carnavale went from a 1-star to a 5-star. Harry Kazarian went from a 1-star to a 2. Anthony Carnavale went from a 1-star to a 2-star. Harry Kazarian went from a 1-star to a 2-star. Pleasant View Elementary went from a 2-star to a 3-star. PCTA, which is right across the street, went from a 1-star, 2-star. And VC Street also moved from a 1-star, 2-star. So let's give them all a big round of applause. Now, let's move on. And I want to flag, and I'm flagging this early just to make sure that everyone understands that it's budget season and we will be facing many difficult decisions as we start looking at our budget. So as soon as I continue to learn more about the budgets, where we stand, I will make sure that I keep everyone informed, especially in our community, to know exactly where we are and what decisions and choices we have that we need to make forward so we can push the district. But like I said, there will be some difficult decisions that we may have to make as we move forward. And today, we are excited to recognize our students who were from Nathan Bishop and the Sesto boys soccer teams before this meeting for their accomplishments this fall. So let's give those gentlemen who just left a big round of applause for their accomplishments. The Bishop boys soccer team was honored by the Metro Division Middle School champion, and the DeSesto was ranked number 2. Let's give them, like I said, another big round of applause for their accomplishment. In addition to that, both the DeSesto girls and boys cross-country teams were recognized as the 2025 Central Division champions. Big round of applause for them as well. There's nothing that makes me happier than to see our students achieving and thinking and making sure that they understand that there is no glass ceiling. If they put their minds to it, they can achieve it, making sure that we give them the right guidance that we can, the best guidance that we can, so they can be successful not only on the field, but also off the field. So that's our job. And I make sure that I take that very dear to my heart. It makes me happy when I see these young men and women coming in here and being recognized for the work that they do. There's nothing better to me. So thank you once again for coming here today. Thank you, President. Back to you.
Thank you, Superintendent. I would like to go to the approval of the agenda. Before we approve it, I would like to move items 4.2, Phase 4 memo to action items. Can I get a motion to make that move?
Motion.
Motion's been made by Chairman Jones. Do I have a second? Second's been made by Vice President Newman. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion's been made by Secretary Fonso. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second's been made by Dr. Williamson. Any discussion? Oh, God, 1 second. Oh, yeah, no, I'm doing good. I'm not approving the consent agenda. My apologies. Am I good? I'm approving the agenda.
Okay, so
Okay.
motion to approve the agenda. I don't know if you may have indicated consent agenda.
Yes, okay.
So-
I'm done with that.
Okay, so we're not gonna take up that motion.
Yes, correct. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Motion's been made by Secretary Fonso. I have a second.
Second.
Second's been made by Vice President Newman. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Motion passes. We are moving to items 3.0, public comment right to be heard. I'm going to move it over to the clerk, see if anyone has signed up for public comment.
Lynn Prentice.
Lynn Prentice? How are you, Lynn?
I'm great. How are you?
I am good. You have 2 minutes. Please state your name for the record. Yes, you can take a seat.
Okay. Hello. Yeah, great. Chairman Stevens, members of the school committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Lynn Prentice, and I'm the executive director of UCAP. And I am here to urge the school committee to adopt the resolution in support of the Senate Bill 2208 and House Bill 7271, legislation that would clarify and stabilize the statutory framework of the Urban Collaborative Accelerated Program, or UCAP. UCAP serves a very specific group of students, young people who have been retained, who are at risk of retention, or who have struggled to succeed in traditional school settings despite the best efforts of the schools. For many of these students, UCAP provides a critical opportunity to re-engage with education and a structured, supportive environment designed around their needs. The legislation before you is not about expanding UCAP's mission or reducing district authority. It is about aligning the law with the realities of today's education system, where school choice and alternative pathways are an established part of public education. Senate Bill 2208 and House Bill 7271 provide clarity and stability to UCAP and the students and the families that we serve. The legislation ensures that UCAP remains a public education program, accountable under state and federal law, while protecting students from disruption caused by changes in governance or administrative control. I also want to acknowledge the financial pressures facing Providence Students served by UCAP often require more intensive academic and social emotional supports, which carry real costs in any setting. UCAP was created and designed specifically to meet those needs and does so as a public program that delivers high quality education at costs that are comparable to the array of services districts must provide to support similar students. I respectfully encourage the school committee to adopt the resolution in support of Senate Bill 2208 and House Bill 7271. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Okay. We are going to move to items 4.0 consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion's been made by Vice President Newman. Do I have a second? Second's been made by Chairman Jones. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Motion passes. I am going to move to items 5.1, implementation timeline for Goal 5, the board's goals and guardrails, discussion and possible vote. Dr. Dillon, how are you on today?
Well, thank you. How are you?
I am well.
So I had the opportunity to reach out to AJ Kravel of the Council of Great City Schools and talked through the concept and idea of putting forward a goal that would be brand new and what that might look like in terms of timeline and measurement. And so what you have under Goal 5 is the recommended timeline and process for civic and global competence to enhance social emotional learning. The goal as written is the percentage of students who graduate demonstrating proficiency on the Portrait of a Graduate Civic and Global Engagement rubric will increase from 0%, since this is new and we don't have a baseline, and not because they are measured at 0% at this time, in June 2028 to 30% by June 2030. The timeline is by June 2026, a training and implementation timeline will be completed and approved by the district level for civics teachers and administrators at middle and high schools. The percent of social studies and civics teachers in the middle and high schools trained on the Portrait of a Graduate rubric will increase from 0% in 2026 to 60% by June 2027. And then the percent of social studies and civics teachers in middle and high schools implementing the Portrait of a Graduate rubric will increase from 0% to 25%. We will capture our baseline in May 2029, and then by May 2030, we will reach that initial target of 30%.
Any questions by board member? Vice President Newman?
Hi, Dr. Dillon, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a question, I see compared to the last time we had talked that you, if I'm remembering correctly, centered the Portrait of a Graduate within social studies and civics,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I'm wondering if you all talked about like arts or anything like that. If there's like, I'm not sure what other like creative disciplines, but wondering if that was something you all talked about.
Sure, we talked about the opportunity for integration with other disciplines. And when we talked through this with AJ, he said to really narrow and define exactly where the measurement would occur. So this goal represents where the measurement would occur. It's not the strategies or action steps, such as cross-discipline integration, which will be part of the action steps that we'll be taking, just like redefining the rubrics to include those CASEL competencies. So we'll bring strategies forward as we move along the timeline, and definitely some of those strategies will include cross-disciplinary opportunities and also opportunities for working with our partners outside of the district, our student partners, such as our civic partners, where we go to the State House and the students have their projects and they present. So that'll be all part of the strategy. You're welcome.
Any other board members? All right. Thank you, Dr. Dillon.
Welcome.
Thank you. I would like to make a motion to approve items 5.1. Motion's been made by Chairman Jones. Do I have a second? Second's been made by Vice President Newman. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Any noes, any abstention? Okay, the motion passes. We're gonna go to items 5.2, resolution affirming Providence Public Schools commitment to student safety, inclusion, and opportunity. This resolution had been recommended by Chairman Mahago. He is unable to attend on tonight. In this resolution, Chairman Mahago was speaking to the board as it pertains to us taking a stance on restorative learning environments for all students. He claims that it aligns with Guardrail 3, which talks about supportive learning environments that the superintendent shall promote. And he has a couple of, one second. And he just wants to reinforce with the events taking place that all communities in Providence, specifically the refugee and immigrant communities, regardless of background or life circumstances, shall foster a safe, supportive, and inclusive school environment that strengthens educational outcomes, promotes student well-being, and supports readiness for post-secondary pathways for all students. Any questions by board members before we move to vote on this resolution? Vice President Newman?
Shut myself off. I guess just the question is, what is my question? My question is that, so we just created goals and guardrails that speak to some of what this resolution is advocating for. And I'm not in opposition to it. Of course, I believe in it. We should do it. I'm just wondering if there's, I don't know if this should be directed to you, President Stevens, or Charlie, just like what is it redundant, I guess, to have a resolution of this manner? Or I know it's an official expression or statement of the board, but given that we have goals and guardrails that expressly state this value, or maybe not in this detail, but is there a benefit to doing this or a drawback?
I think essentially, as you indicated, it's an expression of the board. So in terms of there being a drawback, there would be no drawback other than, what could be construed as some type of public opinion, which would be in the opposite sentiment, but there would be no legal drawback to doing so. It just would be a reiteration of what you've already, to the extent it overlaps, it's just a reiteration of what you've already memorialized in your goals and guardrails. So there would be no conclusion, it would just be duplicative to some extent.
Dr. Winston?
And I mean, I just want to correct me if I'm wrong. This is essentially reiterating what is already current policy and practice within the school district.
That's correct. Yes, that's correct.
So it's more of an affirmation.
Any questions by board members? I wish Chairman was here, but he has an emergency, so I can't do anything, but I do recommend that we move forward with the recommendation. Do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the resolution.
Dr. Winston made a motion to approve items 5.2. Do I have a second? Second's been made by, was it Vice President Newman? Vice President Newman, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Any abstentions? The motion passes. We're going to move over to items 5.3, resolution in support of House Bill 7271 and Senate Bill 2208, amending legislation for UCAP alternative education program, discussion and possible vote. This is something that I, in fact, worked to put together as it pertains to this resolution, as you all have in your packet. I just want to take a moment to clarify what this resolution is, and just as importantly, what it is not. This resolution is not the why. Why is PPSD pulling away from support from UCAP? It's not revisiting past discussions or assigning motives. That's not what's before us today. What is before us is something more fundamental. This resolution simply supports amending state law through Senate Bill 2208 and House Bill 7271 so that decisions about participation or non-participation follow a clear, concise, and consistent process that aligns with Guardrail 2. Guardrail 2 says, therefore, the superintendent shall not implement significant changes without first engaging community members most closely impacted by those changes. So this resolution does not dictate an outcome. it does not take position on merit. What it does is it sort of reiterates the guardrail on guardrail 2 about making sure that communities that are most impacted have some level of engagement before such a decision is made. And this is what Senator Bell had in fact recommended in amending the Senate Bill 2208. Is there any discussion by board members as it pertains to this? Senator Bell, you can come in and speak a little bit to your Senate bill so board members have a greater understanding. And then I know Superintendent has a couple of comments that he wants to share as well. State your name for the record.
Thank you so much. My name is Sam Bell. I'm the state senator here in Providence, and I represent the UCAP school. A week or two ago, I became aware of a letter that was sent out on December 30th by the superintendent withdrawing Providence's participation from the UCAP school effective June 30th of this year. And I will be honest, I was surprised because I would have assumed that I and many other stakeholders would have been consulted first, and most importantly, I would have assumed that the public would have had an opportunity to weigh in on a decision of this magnitude. But the other thing that more profoundly surprised me and disappointed me was the date, which happens to be the day before I and many others are fighting to have the return to local control happen. And I was very concerned about effectively a decision that is being made this year for the next academic year, when I hope that we will have a return to local control. And when I believe that you, the elected and appointed officials of our city, are the appropriate people to make those determinations. So at President Stevens' direction, we moved quickly to draft extremely limited legislation. The goal was simply to say that any decision to close UCAP during the takeover or close UCAP effectively by withdrawing Providence's participation would require the approval of the school board. The other thing it does, which is a technical thing, it does to address a concern raised in the superintendent's letter, which was that the board as currently constituted only has one member, and the school board's representative is currently superintendent, and that's not appropriate for the composition of the board. So this creates a formula where proportional to the number of students, each school committee that sends students to UCAP would have representatives. This would ensure that currently, with Providence as the sole participating member, there would be a multiple member board. So that is just simply to address a compliance concern raised in the superintendent's letter. Again, this is very limited legislation. If the school board chooses, I'd be more than willing to listen to other concerns that could be addressed later on through the sub-A process. But at President Stevens' direction, we try to keep this extremely focused. So with that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions about the legislation.
Is there any board members that have, Chairman Jones?
Yeah, so my question is more for President Stevens and the leadership team. Was this something that we believed couldn't be done kind of through our relationship with the district and, have to kind of go into legislative action? And I just say that, Senator Bell, because, there's been some items that we've been, had a different kind of alignments with, and we've seen the district make some strides to kind of line up some of those, different things. It took time, but it's definitely, I think we've gotten to a place where we worked well with the district. And I just want to check if that was something that was considered or tested.
Absolutely. This isn't legislative action. This is an official stance by the board to take a stance on saying, okay, we believe that there should be some form of community process, similar to if we close a school. We have a policy that says there has to be some level of a community process, but this is really speaking directly to the bill being amended. It's not really speaking directly to the why UCAP had in fact been, why we're not going to be partnering with UCAP long term. So we're not speaking to that piece. What we're speaking to is amending the bill in a way that speaks directly to the school committee, having a level of, more of a level of transparency around having more seats on the school board, well, not on the school, but on the UCAP board, and then also there being some level of a community process for the community that's being most impacted. I hope I explained that correctly.
Yeah, but my question is more of, was there an ask, superintendent, in district, can we do some type of community process, right? Was there an ask that was kind of made, right? And, did that kind of lead to this, or was it kind of presumptive to kind of having that, kind of important conversation?
Absolutely. There was not an ask because the decision had already been made, and a lot of the individuals at UCAP had already been given the letter, so it's already rolling. So one of the things was, after I had gotten a lot of calls from community members, Vice President Newman being one of them as well, that said, hey, there's a lot of people reaching out to us about the process around how this took place. And I believe, and Vice President Newman, you can speak for yourself, but I believe she believes as well that there could have been some form of a communication in a way where community was involved. So this isn't legislative action. I just want to make sure we're clear about that, though. This is really just the board taking a stance to support a Senate bill as it pertains to guardrail 2 of making sure before changes are made that our communities are engaged. Some level of engagement has to take place, and it speaks directly to the board having a little bit more insight and control over how that decision reflects the community. So I think that's it. I don't want to say the wrong thing because I do not want to get to the why. That's not my job to speak directly to the why. Why did the superintendent do it? We're speaking directly geared toward the bill, and the bill does not attack the why. And I just think that this was just a formal sort of process around making sure that there was a level of community process. That's it.
Yeah, so my kind of thoughts are, maybe we table this and spend that time where leadership can have a conversation, maybe including Senator Bell with the district, and see if we can come up with some type of process or, way we can handle this without making an official vote. And then if there's not any kind of resolution, from now to the next meeting, then we can revisit this resolution. But that would be my kind of opinion.
Understood. Thank you. And I do recommend that the board approve this item. And the reason of that is because I just need the community to know that us as a school committee, we believe when decisions like this are in fact made, I believe, I can speak for myself, when decisions like this is made, that we honor what the guardrail says. And the guardrail is clear in saying that, therefore, the superintendent shall not implement significant changes without first engaging community members most closely impacted by those changes. I recommend this because it's a stance. It's not legislation. We're not changing a decision. What we're doing is we're supporting a bill that talks to there being more of a community process. It's not anything controversial that would need to be tabled or discussed in the near future. That's just my personal thought. I know I mentioned your name. I don't know if you wanted to say anything, and I didn't really just put you on the spot.
Oh no, I stand behind everything I say. 10 toes down. Yeah, I think there's two different things I want to name transparently. On a personal level, I have extreme affinity for UCAP. I worked at UCAP through ASU 20 for 10 years. 10 years I went in and out of that school, providing art with teachers, alongside English teachers, science teachers. I got to work with Rob, you know what I mean? I got to work with a couple of you who are sitting there who I haven't seen in a long time, right? And I just want to say on a personal level, this has nothing to do with the guardrail. This is just me speaking personally. UCAP, I saw miracles happen every day in that school with young people. I saw miracles happen every single day. I saw kids who are crashing out be held by the values of that school in a way that other schools could not reach them. I remember thanking God for that school. Thank God for the school. AS 220 was like, thank God for the school. We worked at one point in time, AS 220 worked in the Rhode Island prison in UCAP on purpose. because we want to reach those young people, those families. That's who we were there to serve. And they served us back. We learned so much about ourselves through working with the teachers and the students at UCAP. And so just on a personal level, like every bit of my fiber is like, what? Like, I just want to, just call it professional or not. That's how I feel. Like, what are we doing? This school is legendary. And Rob's vision is legendary, and the way that you all execute that is legendary. And I saw it firsthand for 10 years. Not many people can make me walk across that bridge up from Empire Street. You can't make me do it every day. And I love you for it. And so that's just a personal sentiment, just to put it on the table. Yes, I have a bias in that way. And I believe a lot of people do, because there's generations of people who have been positively impacted by UCAP, people who are my age and older, who are graduates and alum of that school, who I think would really take a lot of problem and do take a real issue. I should not have been. This is where it goes to guardrail 2. I'll leave the personal stuff, but going into guardrail 2, the way I found out about this was at a network meeting for my after school program. And the community was crying out about this happening. And there I am, a school board member, and I don't know about it, and I look dumb. You know what I'm saying? Like, just like, to be honest, to keep it a whole buck, like, I'm like, how did I not know this is gonna happen? I'm the vice president of the school board. I got people coming to me with a lot of like respect because they know what I'm about. But I'm like, I have no answers for y'all because I didn't even know what was gonna happen. And I am tired of being in that position, y'all. Like, and not because of ego, but because my people deserve better. Our people deserve better. I don't know the whys behind this other than the financial is what I can assume. And I understand we as a district have sacrifices to make. We have talked about them at length as we've gone through the goals and the guardrails process, that we know we can't have it all if we're going to be very specific about goals and guardrails. But at the same time, we don't throw our values away in the process of making sacrifice, right? The whole point of guardrail 2 is to not have something like this happen, right? And so regardless of what the fate of UCAP is, there should never be a point where community, and definitely not school board members, are surprised by a school maybe not technically being shut down, but being shut down by withdrawing funds that are not coming to us. And so, yeah, I totally support this resolution. We wouldn't be in this position having to do this if we were included from the jump. And so it's like, I'm sorry, but like we it just shouldn't happen this way. And these guardrails are only words on paper unless we act on them. And so I want to act on them. I'm in this seat because I want to not talk and write, because I want to do. And so that's how I feel about this. And I do want to hear from the district. I would love for us to have talked about it not in a public setting, but that opportunity was not given. So that's why we're in this position right now.
Thank you, Vice President Newman. I seen you had your hand. I know you want to respond. I knew you also wanted to respond to Corey's questions. I don't want to lose that. Do you want to take a moment to respond to Chairman's?
Sure. First thing I want to say is I don't want to comment about any conversations that have happened off the record, but I'd be more than happy to have discussion with anyone here about what some of those conversations might have been, just not on the record. Secondly, I think it's really important to understand that families are a little bit in the state of panic. The workers of UCAP are uncertain. And if it becomes accepted, assumed that UCAP is going to close, and there's no process out there to require public comment and public discussion consistent with the school board's well thought out guardrails, then it sometimes becomes a fait accompli. A lot of teachers might go get different jobs. A lot of students might already have worked out a lot of their alternate placements. And so that's why I think it's important that this conversation move with speed. And that's why I think it's important that there be a legal mechanism started and does not have to be finished. And honestly, my hope, I will tell you, is that ultimately we will not need to pass this legislation. My sincere hope is to work with the McKee administration to come up with another solution. I believe that it's entirely possible, but I strongly believe that it was necessary to have the legislative process be started. However, I really do hope, and I think it's a reasonable thing, to make sure that before a decision like this is reached, there be a public conversation, including all the stakeholders, including the public. But ultimately, I think perhaps more reasonably would be when we do have return to local patrol, which I fundamentally believe we will achieve this year. I think it makes sense to have that be a decision that centers, particularly as pertaining to the next academic year, centers the people who will be making decisions about the next academic year.
Superintendent?
Thank you. I keep hearing guardrail 2, and I want to make sure that everybody understands that the procedures that, and I understand that we don't want to know the why, but the why is really important just to make sure that we understand the process. We looked at it, like, first of all, let's say, for the last 3 years, I've been the only board member, as you heard. It was supposed to be a collaboration of two other communities or districts that were supposed to be part of it. They left, they stopped their partnership is almost 3 years now. For 3 years, I've been the only person holding this position and doing the best I can for the school itself, for UCAP. But also we looking at what was behind some of this, and behind all this, I'm just looking at that. What's the student outcome? How we affecting students? How UCAP is affecting students, and what we can do as a district now if we do the wraparound service. And now think about it. We're looking at 49 students. That's what we're discussing. And if you look at Guardrail 2 speaks about that the decisions need to be made and brought in, as you heard. But if it's affecting over 20% of the population, if you look at 49 students and compared to our district, that's less than 1%. There was a process. We did have a conversation. I did follow the process to make sure that the process that I followed, it says that I need to make sure that I inform RIDE, inform UCAP, and inform the school board, all members of the school board. And by the 31st, I did that. There was a letter that was sent out to UCAP, there was a letter sent out to RIDE, and I had a conversation with President Stevens in reference to what was happening, and some of the reasons as to why. So that's some of the things that we're looking at. We're looking at 49 students. 5 of those students have IEPs, 4 students have 504s, and we can absorb that in our own district. We can do better in our own district. Now that we can do this, the wraparound service, giving extra supports with guidance counselors, social workers, and interventionists for our students. So those are some of the reasons why. So when we look at that, we're not closing UCAP. Lynn Preston also stated herself that they are not closing UCAP. UCAP is not a PPSD school. To us, UCAP is a program that we've been using for many years, and now that we can see that we can perform better at servicing our students, that's what it comes down to. It comes down to the data that we're looking at, how our students performing versus students that we have at UCAP, how UCAP is always performing at least 5% below what's expected in order for them to be marked as improving or not improving. I know we talked about ratings earlier, and UCAP will say, we're a 2-star school, but there's a difference between UCAP 2-star school and our 2-star school. Our 2-star schools are students who are closing the gap. We're closing the achievement gap, where our students at UCAP we're looking at, because they do not have the number of students to show for students with IPs, 504s, MLLs, then that's why, because their numbers are so small, it has a 2-star school. It wasn't about closing the achievement gap, as it was being said. Those are some of the reasons that I'm looking at, that we make sure. And also at the end of the day, we're also looking at financial. We know that we are in a financial trap, but that is not the only reason. The main reason that I made this decision looking at data, and then saying, can we do better? And the answer is yes, we can do better. We have what it takes to service our own students in our own district. And it's a program that said, it's no longer doing what it was set out to do, which is meet students' needs, and we can do that better. And we're looking at, say, a savings of about 1.25. That's coming back to the district for 49 students.
For the superintendent?
Yeah, maybe it's a question or observation. Thank you, Superintendent. I just want to point out about the guardrail. The guardrail, that I don't want to misconstrue what it says. It says, therefore, the superintendent shall not implement significant changes without first engaging community members. That doesn't mean alerting people of a decision after it's already been made. It says first engaging. And it also says the 20% of PTSD school community. So that's an interim measure that it's not it doesn't give the superintendent the ability to not talk to people unless it affects 20% of the 20,000 students we have. It says 20% of the school community. So it sounds like, I'm not a mathematician, but that sounds like 100% of the school community to me. You know what I'm saying? Like if we're talking about these are only Providence students who go to UCAP and they're all going to have to go back to a different school, that's 100% of that school community, right? And also that interim measure talks about the time in which communication will happen and how the goal is to decrease the number of days, right? And so I just don't think the spirit of the guardrail is being represented accurately. And I think for these guardrails to hold true, which I know, Superintendent, this is not a personal attack. I really know that you love the students and you care about the students in the district. So it's not a personal attack. It's just, I think it's important to make sure that not only the what is written about the guardrails is honored, but the spirit in which the guardrails were created is honored, and that we don't look for technicalities to jump over community and our commitments.
Chairwoman Severio?
Yeah, I was just looking for clarification on what, like, the languages that we would be approving, because it didn't see.
The language of the bill?
Yeah, and is it
We weren't able to attach it. It's fine if it wasn't printed. I can get it to you.
I think it's, I looked it up, so it's this act would amend the composition of the urban collaborative, basically saying that it's going to be governed by the board of trustees so that the Providence Public Schools cannot terminate their participation without going through us. And that is the language that we're approving.
Okay.
Not that they can't terminate on their own, it's just we're trying to say they have to go to the school board before they can make that decision.
Right, and you can speak more to that. And I think the reason of that and how we tie that into our guardrail is so we make sure that there's some kind of engagement with the community. And you can speak a little bit more to that, which your intention was with the bill, but that's how it sort of ties into that guardrail I was speaking to. Senator Bell?
Right, and obviously partially this was at your direction, President Stevens, you directed us to be as limited as possible, which I strongly agree with. Part of the intention there, the other element of the intention is, again, our intentions around the return to local control. As I see it, this is a decision for the next academic year, and I strongly intend to advocate for the return to local control to happen such that you, the school board, will have the ability to make that decision. And that's one of the reasons why I feel like that decision should be vested in the current school board.
Any other board members? Dr. Wayne?
Actually, my question was board member Severio's question, so.
Yeah, I wanna,
Chairman.
yeah, I just wanna say that I have no problem with that specific language. I do think that, from the time of now until whenever we see that, bill go into committee and then possibly to the floor, I do want to strongly encourage leadership and district to work together. I think that tough decisions will have to be made, and as we made our goals and guardrails, we talked about how the entire budget could have to change to kind of meet those goals and guardrails. And so, we have to decide where we are willing to take some pain, where we aren't willing to take some pain. I'm always in favor of the district, quite honestly, having more students and serving them within the district rather than going outside the district. But with that being said, I think that there's still possibilities and different options that could maybe be a resolution that, we can kind of still get where the district is trying to get, where they're making savings and they're able to provide a better quality of service, but then also still have, great teachers, great administrators, right? Be able to, whether that's being absorbed or, that's some other solution. I think that let's take this as an opportunity to continue to work together and find a solution together. But, I obviously don't have a problem with the kind of language that empowers the school board, right? And that kind of decision making. I do want to ask the superintendent, what type of deadlines are we facing? When, when does this become kind of problematic, right? Where if we don't have a decision made or there's kind of a bill that's passed that would halt that decision, when does that, what type of deadlines are we looking at?
Legally, we had to make sure that a letter was sent to the commissioner, also to make sure that UCAP also had a copy of the letter that was going out, and we needed to make sure that that was out before the 31st, and it went out.
When does it, when would if this decision was paused, right, due to state legislation, when would it be kind of problematic for the budget?
We're working on budget as we speak right now, so I'll have to speak with Zach in reference to that, but it'll have an impact on us.
Absolutely. Thank you. And if you can get that to the board, I think that would be really important information as well. Just to understand kind of the urgency in it as we balance these different kind of priorities and values.
Thank you, Chairman. Secretary Fox?
I just think it's important to elevate Chairman Jones. When you spoke, it was as if, and this is how I understand it, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it was like you were saying leadership didn't try to have those conversations, and I just want to elevate that we weren't brought to the table, as Vice President Newman has said, to have the opportunity to have those conversations. The letter went out without any, I found out like Angel did through community, and I'm like, oh, and I felt the same, not being able to have an answer, or because I also working at ASU 20 work with many kids coming from UCAP, so there is magic there, and it does feel hard when we are building collaboration together to not have gotten that conversation or the respect of that conversation before. And then also want to elevate what was said already, that the guardrail does ask for community engagement, and that was loud and clear in all of our community listening sessions. And that's why it was made into a guardrail. So
Yeah, and I can take accountability for that because the superintendent did notify me in advance that this decision was going to take place. I did say, okay, we need to make sure it's communicated with the board, and then he said he was going to send a letter up to the board, which you did the same day you called me.
I'm sure they went out. Yeah, this has to go out the same. They all went out at the same.
Yeah, so I can take that responsibility for not communicating with leadership, but I was under the intent that it was going to go out to the entire board, which Chairwoman Severo.
is there a reason that there was such turnaround after making that, such a quick turnaround after making that decision to notify us? So I think part of this is like when you guys started having those conversations, including the decision that you was maybe just trying to hit that, so that way, because it sounds like you notified President Stevens the same day the letter went out. So potentially, I don't know if there's some sort of guardrails or something internally policy that maybe we have to change that includes us in these conversations before that happens. So it's not last minute, such quick turnaround.
Any other questions? Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to get to that. We'll get to that. Is there any other questions by board members? Chairman Jones?
Yeah, I just want to say to Meech's comment that I wasn't trying to be accusatory. It was just an honest question, right? Did we try to, take, like in the classes I've been taking, my public leadership class, it talks about your informal authority and your formal authority, right? And, when the right time to use either one of those. And so, I see this as a kind of informal authority, right, to pass a resolution. And so I just wanted to, assess if we took, kind of use our informal authority to say, hey, right, this is what we're thinking, and see if that we can get it resolved that way before using our formal authority.
Any last thing by you, Senator Sam Bell?
No, I think that clarifies everything. You guys had a wonderful discussion. I guess I want to close by, I want to thank the school board for all the work that you put in. And I want to say how excited I am to see the school board get the schools back should we be successful. So I really want to thank you for all the work you put in, and I'm really excited about where you're going to go.
Thank you. I would like to entertain a motion to approve items 5.3 resolution in support of House Bill 7271 and Senate Bill 2208, amending legislation for UCAP alternative education program discussion and vote. Do I have a motion Motion's been made by Vice President Newman. Do I have a second? Second's been made by Secretary Fonts. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any noes, any abstentions? The motion passes. I would like to call up Dr. Dexter Moore to give a quick update on Phase 4 memo, and then we will get into our last item, second to last item of the day, which will be the state assessment data. Dr. Moore, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well.
Good evening, board. Thank you for the time. What's on the computer? Oh, actually, okay. I don't have it. That'll be the next item. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Good evening, President Stevens, board, community colleagues. This is my first opportunity to speak directly with you all about our capital strategy. And I just want to share how energized I am by the work ahead. Phase 4A represents both an opportunity and a responsibility to deliver for students while positioning PPSD for decades to come. Providence is in a rare position nationally. While many school districts are stalled by declining enrollment and aging facilities, PPSD has voter support, state and city partnership, and a clear new or like new 2030 commitment. Those advantages only matter if we execute with discipline and stay aligned to the critical timelines that you see in the memo. This memo reflects a deep multi-tiered engagement effort that went underway this fall and will continue into the future. We had more than 35 sessions reaching hundreds of families, staff, students, and community members. I want to thank all of our board directors and city and elected leadership for the work that you did, and also many board directors for the small group meetings that you held with us as well. The feedback is remarkably consistent across groups. There's strong support for modern, safe buildings and pre-K-8 models, paired with a desire for clear school-specific information about timelines, transitions, and preserving school culture. Phase 4A is really shaped by two immovable realities. Number one, swing space will not be available to us until August 27 at the earliest. And two, construction must be completed by June 30th, 2029 to secure full state reimbursement. And so we know that missing those windows would put millions of dollars at risk and affect future phases. And so we're taking our planning very seriously along with our engagement. So what's in front of the board now is just really about direction. So you see project lists, grade configurations, and you've heard about some of the estimated budgets for Phase 4A. This is not a final decision, not final construction logistics, and certainly not the end of engagement. As we move into the next phase, families and staff will see clear school-specific communication, including visuals, timelines, and opportunities to weigh in on the design as details take shape. My role is to help to hold the system steady, both with urgency and care, moving fast enough to protect that funding that I named, while also slowly and deliberately enough to bring our communities with us and alongside of us. I know that you all know, and I certainly know, that facilities are not just buildings. They're a retention strategy, they're a teaching strategy, and they're a signal of what we believe every Providence Public School District student, family, educator, and community member deserves. And so I'm excited to partner with this board as Phase 4A moves from engagement into design. And I look forward to continuing to return with clearer answers as decisions come into focus. So thank you for your time this evening.
And really quick, I do want to credit Dr. Dexter. Immediately he came in from Oakland, California. That's the whole other side of the world. And immediately he's like, okay, what can I do to make sure that the board is involved and that we engage communities that are having these projects take place? Chairman Jones is always raving about you, so I want to mention that, but I do want to recognize the good work that is taking place and the partnership, making the superintendent look good on the partnership piece. So, Chairman Jones?
Thank you, President Stevens. You forgot to say the whole warm side too.
Right. We didn't tell you nothing about the snow in New England.
Right. Yeah, I'm like, you got 18 inches of snow. Don't go. Don't leave us.
And more this weekend. Chairman Jones?
Yeah, so as you all know, I serve on the school buildings committee. Besides, with our former school board member, now parent rep, Melissa Hughes. And, the school buildings committee gets multiple different opportunities to vote on these things. So as Dexter said, we don't, this isn't necessarily setting us into a specific plan, but this is just starting the preliminary approval processes. And, through this process, there was some small things that, multiple board members had noticed. One thing was that there was no K-8 on the east side. And when that was brought to my knowledge, I actually thought a K-8 on the east side would be really good because, if you know anything about the east side parents, I call it the east side pipeline, right? They go to Barton or MLK, and then, maybe they went to Bishop for a year and it was too much, right? It was too quick, too big. And then they go to charter or they go to private, right? And then they'll try to get into classical. If they don't get into classical, then they keep them in private or charter. And I saw this as an opportunity for us to kind of increase that continuity of students that stay inside of the district on the east side that may otherwise, choose to go another path. So I thought not only would, that kind of meet some of the president's kind of equity concerns, but it also made sense for the east side parents. And so that was an adjustment that was made that I was very pleased with. And so there was multiple adjustments made across the board with this work. And then, I was also able to host 2 focus groups where we talked to parents in a small, intimate setting, and we were able to have these conversations about what they thought. And one parent had said, when you go from MLK or Barton, which was very interesting to me, something I didn't know, those students are going to 40 different schools, right? And so those PTOs are very strong at MLK. They're very strong at Barton. They're probably some of the strongest PTOs in this city. And those PTOs get splintered in 40 different directions. So then when they go to Nathan Bishop, it takes 2 years to get that PTO strong again. And then when you get to year 3, you're on your way out, right? So that was also a benefit that a parent had identified. But then they said, Corey, we think this can work great. A few of them actually went to a K-8 school. Their concerns was transparency, communication, right? And I told them that, this is me and as a kind of extension of the school board, taking accountability and, facilitating these conversations and then operating as kind of your accountability partner. So I think there's more work for me to do. As, AJ would say, we are the genesis for change, right? There's more work for me to do and making sure that we're connected to the community, making sure that we're able to bring back information to the district. The districts did a phenomenal job with the community engagement. 35 meetings is pretty incredible. So I think, as the school board does our community meetings, as leadership introduced that resolution in the last meeting, where we'll start doing more community meetings and, making this information front and center and us becoming more informed. I'll be doing work to call board members and having conversations. Me and Meech had a wonderful conversation the other day where I'll give updates on different buildings in the districts as I'm learning them more and more. But yeah, I think that this is a great plan. I'm in full support of it. And, board members, if there's ever any issues, any, things that you're curious about regarding school buildings committee, please feel free to call me. I'll write it down and I'll bring it into those meetings and ask those questions. We have a great partner in crime in those committees. Kyle Delgado, who's representing the city council, is always asking very critical questions, always pushing us to be more engaged. So just know that, there's 3 of us, me, Melissa, and Kyle, who are in those meetings, who are asking these critical questions. And the district has been responsive every time. So I think this is just another opportunity for us to work with the district and to make sure that we're bringing the vision of the community into these conversations and ensuring that the plan is morphing to fit that vision. So great job so far. And, there's certainly more work to do in increasing that transparency, increasing that communication and ensuring that, small things, right, are kind of trickling into those conversations, and we're ensuring that is being incorporated. So thank you, Dexter.
Thank you, Chairman. Any of the board members have questions? Dr. Williamson?
And this isn't specifically about the report, so if it's a quick answer, great. If it's gonna be a long answer, I think yes. Aside, but, is there an update on what's going on with Arian School by any chance? Did I just ask, celebrate there, and my neighbor's asking sometimes, what's going on?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Director Williamson. We're still projected for our fall 2027 opening at Kazarian. We're actually launching some focus groups with staff. I want to say next week, if not the week afterwards. So there's still work happening. I know part of the challenge is when you don't see holes in the ground and visible progress, you ask those questions understandably. So I know that we also have to do a better job of communicating progress as well. So we had our school building committee meeting last night. One of the things that you can expect to see as early as next week is just all of the content from that school building committee meeting, and particularly the presentations from the design build teams, because it shows kind of nitty gritty details of the progress and making sure that that's communicated beyond the 25 people in that room. So that'll be on our website, and I'll reach out, and I'm happy to talk more about that project.
No, that's fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
Cool.
People asking.
I appreciate the question. Thank you.
Superintendent?
One of the things that we also do during that meeting is making sure that we take, as you heard, the community voice. And I'm probably one of the, even though that I'm the chairman, I'm always asking questions of, okay, how much greenery, how much lighting do we have? Do we have space for busing? Where's the busing going? So all those questions are being asked, and sometimes they're even coming from us as well, asking the design team, because we keep hearing, and through the meetings that we have, we hear the community, we hear the parents, we hear the ask, so we go back and make sure that those are covered when we have it.
Any other board members? All right, there being none, thank you, Doctor.
Thank you for your time.
All right, we're gonna move over to items 6.1, state assessment data. I believe we will be joined by Dr. Paula Dillon and
Dr. Michaela Keegan.
and Miss Keegan. I call her Miss Keegan. She used to be my principal. Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so this. Oh, yeah, actually. We're just gonna just see change. So thank you for having us. Tonight, we will be going over the state assessment data. This is the assessments that the students took in May of 2025. So we received the scores around end of October, early November, analyze the data and bring them to you. You'll notice that we created this presentation a little bit differently than we have in the past. So this is our first attempt at arranging our student assessment data, state assessment data, around the board's goals. So you'll notice a heavier focus on grade 3 and 8 literacy and grade 4 numeracy as our first attempt at really trying to pull out the data from those particular board goals. Okay. So as you probably recall, our first goal for the board goals are that the percent of grade 3 students who score proficient on writing CAS ELA will increase from 24% in June 2025 to 50% by June 2030. So this is our baseline data that we're sharing with you now. If you recall, the rationale for this is that students who are proficient in reading by the end of grade 3 have much higher proficiency rates and rates of success in the high school and beyond. And so that's why we had selected the early childhood literacy starting in grade 3. And then also the middle school proficiency check for reading as well for literacy. So our baseline was 15.9% in June, and we want to move that to 25% by June 2030. Again, grade 8 is a gateway to post-secondary. And so we really want to make sure that we're looking closely at our students in our middle years and making sure that they're prepared for high school and post-secondary.
Sorry to interrupt. Could you pull the mic a little closer? I think that in the back they aren't able to hear.
Is that better?
Back. Better, yeah, thank you.
Okay. Our first slide with assessment data, we break down the assessment data for overall ELA proficiency starting in 2017, 2018 to look at what the journey has been since pre-pandemic until now. So you can see in 2017, we were at 14% proficient. We're currently at 18% proficient for the district level, increasing fairly regularly with a couple of dips since that 2018, but post-pandemic increasing regularly. So if you look at our ELA, some information that's important to know is that our reading comprehension and written response are showing improvement in grades 4 to 6, but plateau in middle school. I want to talk about what we're doing in the middle school, especially with that grade 8 goals. Keep in mind, the next steps in this presentation are all pre-budget, right? So we just adopted these goals and we haven't put in different resources to support the goals yet. So our next steps aren't touching upon those strategies yet. That will come at another session. Text-based writing remains our most significant area of continued need. This year alone, what we've done is we've increased the amount of text-based writing across all of our grades. And we have benchmark assessments and are supporting the common planning time teams and providing professional learning in those teams to the teachers around text-based writing. And we're also looking for evidence of text-based writing when we're doing our regular walkthroughs of schools. Our vocab and inferential reasoning shows modest gains, especially where explicit instruction in vocabulary is a priority, and we're going to talk about that as a long-term strategy. We also know that students are performing stronger on literary passages and informational passages, so that's another area of focus. And this summer we had professional learning, our first year of professional learning on universal design for learning. We will continue that because what we're seeing are the schools that are really engaged in that work right now are showing greater gains than the schools who are at earlier adoption level. Getting to our goals for grades 3 and 8 in literacy, I wanted to show you the historical look at our performance in grade 3 and 8, and that's what you can see on those charts. We are above the pandemic rates for both grade 3 and grade 8, and we're continuing to make improvements. Of course, we have more work to do, but the gains based upon the strategies that we have put in place are evident in that data with grade 3 at 24% and grade 8 at 15%, up from 18% for grade 3 and 9% for grade 8. What does that look like in terms of the particular grades? Foundational reading skills are improving. Comprehension continues to be the area where we need to focus, especially on informational text. You've heard me say that before. That continues to be where we need to focus. Connecting details back to main ideas in nonfiction work is something that is an area of need that we are working on, as is writing evidence from text. A huge opportunity for us where we're seeing gains that can continue to leverage our students' ability to comprehend and write is vocabulary development. And what we're seeing with some of our gaps are showing that we also need to focus on early literacy in grades 2, 1, and K, so that by the time the students reach 3, those foundational gaps have been addressed. In grade 8, overall proficiency continues with incremental increases. Informational text is the same as for grade 3. It's the area of great need. We continue to work on written response. Writing mechanics and organization are an area of growth, but continued need. And we are really looking closely at subgroup performance, especially with our students with disabilities. So that is an area where we are definitely seeing greater gaps. So students with disabilities in grade 8, we'll see a breakdown of our demographics later on in the presentation. When we look at RICAS ELA, there are 3 primary groups. There's language skills, reading skills, and writing skills. Writing skills includes both writing and language. And I wanted to provide you with a breakdown across those different domains by grade. This is one of the ways that we know which of the skills that are the weakest by grade and where we really need to spend more time and focus. So you can see in grade 3, language development and reading comprehension are much stronger than writing. And so that tells us that we need to really continue to focus on writing in grade 3. So that's how you would read that knowledge and domains chart. Do you want questions on RICAS ELA before I move to math, or should I continue?
Chairman Joe?
Yeah, so could you just go over the list of the different interventions again? I know you mentioned the middle school teams and that you're doing and what kind of impact we expect to have.
Sure. So middle school teams aren't an intervention. Middle school
Or
teams,
strategy.
yeah, it's a strategy or a structure. And the reason why we do teams at the middle school that 100 students become really well known to 4 core teachers. And when those core teachers have the opportunity to meet in teams, then they can look at the same students across the different subject areas to see how the students are doing. They can support each other on strategies that are working in different classrooms. And they can also support when it comes time to advisory or the intervention, what I need blocks. So there are definitely many opportunities when you have a team structure in a middle school that lends itself to not only supporting students who might be struggling, but also for enrichment, because it allows us to do things like Discovery Zone, where we're allowing students to accelerate in their areas of strength. It also allows us to provide grade level and beyond practice in things like algebra readiness. So the teaming structure is one of our strategies that has a research base that is very effective for not only intervention, but core instruction and enrichment. So it hits all 3 of those categories.
Are there any other specific strategies that are tied to these goals?
Yes. So at the lower elementary level, for example, in grades K to 2, we are using a program called Mosaics or Mosaicos, and it's for the dual language students, and that really targets that foundational reading. We also have a program called Amira, which is a program where students read and their fluency is tracked. They're able to answer and ask questions to a character that responds to them, gives the teacher feedback, reports their writing so the teacher can hear how the student is reading. If you're familiar with running records from the past, it is a type of a running record with comprehension built in that is machine driven, that allows the student to continue that practice. And then when they get to the teacher for explicit direct instructions from the teacher, they've had another opportunity for practice and feedback. We also have all of our teachers trained in science of reading, which was really critically important. And so through there, they're able to do different strategies within the tier 1 or the core instruction for reading. They're also able to support students in tier 2 interventions. We have interventionists that work in the classrooms and close small groups of students who might need additional support in each of these areas. We also have different specific programs for students with individualized education programs, such as EdMark, that we might be using with particular groups of students. So we have programs, we have interventions. We also adopted iReady as a support to not only provide diagnostics, but to give students practice with standards mastery it's called. And just the way that we're structuring our CPTs, all grades have common planning time or CPTs. And during that time, teachers come together, look at data, internalize lessons, create action plans, engage in plan, do study, act cycles of inquiry, so that they're constantly looking at how their students are doing and making shifts based upon what that data is telling them. So lots.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of good strategies. My kind of final question is, I know some of these strategies we've already been working on, right, and some are scaling up. Is there any kind of, and maybe this is a wider district question, but is there any kind of projections to how the budget may have to change to meet these demands that you all are thinking about?
Definitely. There are a few things that are coming to mind. One of the areas, Amira, which has proven extremely successful in terms of helping students grow, that has been granted. We would like to continue that, but in order to continue that, we would have to move it into our budget. So that is definitely an area. A second area is to look at the interventionists, the level of interventionists or reading specialists specifically that we have available at grades 3 and 8. So that is something else that we will be looking forward to talking about in the budget in terms of literacy. In terms of numeracy, there are other strategies, but those are the two in terms of literacy. Did I miss one? No, I believe those were the two for literacy.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I think that's important for us to keep in mind as we're, thinking about the budget and, kind of calculating where those different expenses are going and aren't going. So I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Winston.
I just had a question about the vocabulary development. It says that schools with explicit morphology lessons. So I'm guessing, I'm not an expert on this, so I'm relying on here that morphology refers to the ability to say thing or root word and general. That sort of think
Prefixes,
through.
suffixes,
Yeah.
words, yes.
Yeah, how do you
all
take
that.
a noun and make it into a verb?
Yes, absolutely. And it's a big component of vocabulary development. On top of that is also context and bringing what the student already knows and can connect to vocabulary and words, or similar words from their home language that might be connected to English language as
So
well.
cognates of
Yeah, cognates and things. Yes,
C to
exactly.
a T, make an ION. Yeah.
Exactly. So bringing all of that, and we are really focused heavily on that because what we're seeing is that as we've made that shift to really focus on vocabulary, we're seeing growth faster where that's happening. So we're starting to spread those strategies more widely and with more focus.
And in terms of, in terms of student outcomes, measuring.
Yes.
Does the testing, forgive my
Yes.
ignorance on this point, but it does the testing that we currently use measure students' ability to sort of work through the morphology themselves?
It does. So it breaks down into all of the categories that we've talked about. It breaks down into the foundational reading, phonemic awareness, phonics, morphology, language development. It breaks down into reading literature, reading informational text. It breaks it all the way down to the standard level. So we can actually pinpoint at the standard level how our students are doing across the board, which really helps us in order to be able to accelerate or intervene as necessary. So that small group, high dosage tutoring that we're able to do in the small groups, really depends on us being able to access that data. Our data team is amazing. And so what many districts struggle with, which we don't, data lives in all of these different places. So iReady has their data, Amira has their data, Mosaicos has their data. And so then districts have, the teachers go in and they say, okay, this is, the student's doing well. Look at what it looks like in iReady. But what they're not seeing in iReady is how the student is doing in all those other areas, as well as our curriculum-based measures, which are our regular teacher, instruction and progress the students making in the classroom, as well as their attendance data, and their SEL data, right? But our data team has built something in Power BI called our data dashboard. So when I look at a student, I can see all of that information in one place. And I can see what's moving up, what's not moving, what's moving down. And as a team, we can come together, look at all of that information instead of one, and make very, very clear decisions. So it's an amazing resource that Providence data team has developed that no districts have, which is amazing. Yeah. I mean, they have Power BI, but they don't have the vision. Yeah. Yeah, so it's really been a tremendous asset. And when we come back to talk to you about our middle of the year data, we can show you screenshots of what that looks like and show you how that data breaks down on those assessments in terms of the middle of the year data. You're welcome.
Vice President Newman.
I just wanted to give just a shout out. I know at Kennedy, I started going to the RICAST morning camps. I thought that was such like a really cool addition. It's so hard to find, your kid needs help. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, it's gonna stay after school. How am I gonna figure that out? And it was really cool to like get him involved in the morning camps. I just thought that was like such a good use of time because otherwise he'd be sitting in rec. And I love the rec, but like, you know what I mean? He's excited to go every morning, and I just thought that was really cool. Is that something that's being offered across the district?
So depending upon the budget of each school and the vision of the leader, it's offered in some schools, not all schools. It is something that we're talking about. How do we make it uniformly available to students? Big plug, if you're looking for your students to be engaged in math, we are offering Math Equal Academy to all of our students in grades 3 through 8. So it will be part of our budget discussions with you for sure in terms of strategy.
Thank you for that. I have one more question, and I'm not sure it sort of like goes into dimensions of like wellness and health. And I know you mentioned like so many different academic strategies. I'm just wondering if there's anything that sort of like branches over into wellness. Like I'm just thinking about food, you know what I mean? Just like basic food or snacks in the classroom, or if there's anything around like if you all have tracked anything related to like academics and just like basic nutrition and kids being like fed well throughout the school day and how that makes a difference, and if there's any strategies in place related to just wellness as it pertains to academics.
Yes, so Sandra Stewart and her team have developed a fairly comprehensive SEL strategy. In fact, our SEL strategies and their impact on students were actually the first pieces that we put into our branching mind system. And from there, we spanned it out to academics, not the other way around. We don't necessarily have a tracker for food and how students are doing. However, we do have the biomass measurement of students' SEL. We also have different curricula that happen in the students' advisories around SEL. We're expanding the SEL competencies into some of our rubrics, especially those that are connected to the portrait of the graduate. So we'll continue to expand. And we are looking at all of our SEL teams in each of the buildings to provide us additional information in addition to what we are able to measure and track with the students. So on Branching Minds, we're able to see the student attendance, their biomass scores, any SEL work that's happening in their advisories or their what I need blocks and their academics. So we can see that whole picture in one place for each of the students. Okay, math. So our board goal for math is grade 4 because grade 4 is the gateway to Algebra 1. And so that's why we selected that as a board. And our baseline this June was 23.6%. And we would like to get to 45% by June 2030. On the next page, I have the breakdown of our historical RICAS math. You can see in 2017, 2018, the district was at 10% proficient in math. We have increased to 16% proficient, increasing each year with the exception of the drop that occurred during COVID. And then what does the RICAS measure? We have underneath by grade the different areas of math, the math domains and knowledge domains that each student is learning and being measured on, from measurement and data all the way to number systems, expressions and equations in the older grades. Those percentages represent the percentage of students who successfully hit proficiency in that particular knowledge and domain area on the RICAS. So if you can quickly scan that, you can see that the elementary schools are fairly strong and consistent. In grade 4, operations and algebraic thinking is the lowest of those areas. And that's the area that we actually need to be the strongest and we need to continue to work on. So we're at 38.2% there, and we will continue to work on that as we are getting ready with our for our algebra readiness. We also are paying particular attention to our work with fractions. Okay. In terms of student performance, we see stronger performance on procedural mathematical problems than those that are conceptual and multi-step. So those are the two areas that we will continue to focus on as we move into the rest of the school year and into next year. Translating word problems, and I don't mean necessarily in language, although students do that, but taking what the word problem is asking and turning it into a math problem is something that we continue to work on as students are trying to understand what the problem is asking them to do and then applying it into a math strategy. We definitely are seeing for our newer MLL students gaps in their performance as our students who are MLL learners move up in their proficiency. They tend to outperform our students who were not MLL learners, but in the beginning, there is a gap, right? So as they're early learners of the language, we do see the gaps on the RICAS. And what we're also seeing are schools that are teaching the high quality curriculum with intentionality, integrity, and fidelity are performing at higher rates than schools that are still in the earlier stages of implementation. I provided the grade 4 historical math data for you. So you can see that in 2017, 2018, grade 4 was at 12% proficient. They've doubled that. They're at 24% proficient now, and we'll continue that work.
For the knowledge and domain related gaps, what percentages? You may not have an answer for this right now, but is there a reason why like grade 7 is so low? If there's such a difference between like the data, do we have? I'm sure there's some data, some explanation out there that has to be into, but is there something that there's a reason that there's a drop off at grade 7?
So we don't have cohort data here, but if we had cohort data here, I'd be better able to answer that for grade 7. The middle school if you recall, is our focus area overall. And what we found was that we needed to put in different strategies and structures in the middle school. So you heard Chairman Jones ask us about, why did we put in the teaming model? That was one reason. We've also added an additional strategy through a tool called New Classrooms, and our mid-year data at the middle school, including 7th grade, is already showing extremely promising results, adding that strategy in. We built that into the advisory period. So, and we also now have discovery or win, depending upon what the school calls it, in all of the middle schools because of those performance pieces. We've added interventionists and additional SEL supports also in our schools, and our middle schools have interventionists in each middle school now.
Sorry, as long as we're going to step back to the knowledge retains section. So is this essentially telling us what is measured in each grade, or?
What's measured, and then how the students in June and May performed. Like what percentage proficient were they on that particular skill?
So I'm just curious, I guess, like for operations and algebraic thinking, it seems like expressions, equation, like the a little bit of maybe the cart before the horse, right? Like intuitively, for me at least, I think
So
if I haven't really got a thorough understanding of expressions and equations, then to ask them to do algebra.
So we now, in math, we really focus on moving from concrete to conceptual. And we have what we call a coherence map that shows how each of the skills in each of these areas link and build on each other, so that as we're moving from the 3rd grade into the 8th grade, there's something called a math coherence map. And so it shows how each of these standards link to the standard that comes before it and what skills the student needs in order to move to the next. So in terms of the progressions, the ones that are here in 6th grade for expressions and equations, we're moving now from the students using strategies to using algorithms, for example. Do you have anything that you want to add to that?
No, I was just gonna make the comment that the conceptual thinking for expressions and equations starts earlier. They just teach it in a different way, so they may not be solving those complex problems that they're expected to solve in 7th grade, but the building the thinking around it starts younger.
So in 7th grade, would that like trigonometry, or?
It would be pre-algebra, really. Like if you
Okay.
think about the old traditional way, it would be like pre-algebra.
Okay.
Or even pre-algebra in that area. So we're getting ready for 8th or 9th grade algebra in 7th grade.
Yeah.
What we've done on the end, because you had a lot of great questions around the difference between phonemic awareness and phonics, is we added a little chart for you. But we can do the same thing next time on the math coherence to show you the progression.
And I think what might be helpful, I'm just thinking, like when I go into elementary schools, right, you do get to see, if you visit a wide range of classrooms, if you go to 1st grade and 5th grade, you can see that progression like almost in real time. So maybe bringing like an example of like how do we teach students that concept of, if I have 3 cookies and Paula has 5, how many are left? Like what's that missing number 2? We might do that in a formula as we get older, but that's taught differently, that concept when they're younger, if that makes sense. And you can see that in the curriculum and the way they ask those questions, especially when you walk. If you do an elementary and middle on the same day, then you really get to see it. So
Yeah, so you're seeing things like skip counting and tape diagrams and trees.
So when you're saying algebraic thinking,
Like earlier levels, we're not talking about solving for
Like
X.
X plus Y,
Exactly.
yeah, no,
Okay,
yeah.
It's the skills that will get them there when they get into
Yeah.
the
right,
equation.
it's more two cookies for us.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, everyone worries when the cookies go missing. We can all,
Okay, so I think we're on slide 13. Slide 13, we have our grade 4 analysis. So proficiency is increasing year over year. We are below the state average though, and so we know more work, and so that we're reaching the state average. We know that we need more work on functions and multi-step operations. What we're engaged in is something called item analysis, so that we're able to see across each of the item types what work we need to focus on for our students so that they are prepared and ready for post-secondary. And one of the greatest tools that we're seeing that's working is math discourse, where we're having students talk with one another and also with the teacher and whole group about their math thinking and how they're solving and why they're solving. And this helps us in a number of ways. One of the best ways that it helps is being able to identify a misconception before it solidifies as something that the student owns, right? So the teacher is able to see where those misconceptions are happening. They're able to address that. We're also able to have students who have a strong concept and grasp of it, explain it to their peers, and sometimes students explain to other students is a lot more effective. They're using kid language to kid language, and that tends to be very effective. But also when we speak to each other as learners, as adults, or as students, we can grasp more, but we can also retain more of what we're learning and what we're talking about, so that discourse in math becomes critical. It's especially critical for students who are learning English. We want to give them as much practice speaking as possible. So in previous years and decades, you might have thought that a quiet classroom was a classroom where learning was happening. Brain science tells us a classroom where there's talking, academic talking, but a lot of it is a classroom where there's learning happening. And so that's something that we're measuring and looking for when we're going on our walks. The next chart is something that I know is very important to the school board, and that is looking at data across subgroups. So I definitely wanted to make sure that you had both the number of students in each subgroup and the percentage proficient of those students in each of our math and ELA RICAS assessments. So this chart represents that. You can see that I had identified our early learner MLLs as an area of a gap that's notable, and our differently able students as an area of a gap that is notable. You can see for ELA and math, that's a consistent area of need. If we're all set with RICAS, I'd be happy to move on to science. Okay. So the,
Dr. Dillon.
yes, that's okay.
Can we go-
Slide 14?
Mhm. So what are some of the systems we're putting in place to make sure that we're bringing up some of the percent proficient, I'm so sorry,
No, that's right.
ELA proficiency for our students of color and MLL students?
So for our MLL students, we have ensured that all of our teachers working with the students are certified and trained. But we have that MLL coaching. And if you recall, the historical trajectory shows that over time, once the students are with us for a number of years, then they tend to outperform. So the systems that we have in place through the MLL department are extremely solid. We're seeing the growth that we want to see. The initial proficiency is lower. We also have what we call ELD block, So in addition to taking their English class, the students also take an English language development course, so they have an additional hour or block a day, depending upon the length of the blocks in the school, to focus specifically on the language development component. We also have staff who, if they are not certified, are trained. And I think I already said we have the MLO coaches that go out and work directly with the educators. All of our MLO students are also eligible and take part in any intervention that we have for students who are not MLO. For our, did you say differently abled students? For our differently abled students, we are in the process. We started this year. We revamped the groupings for the students and ensured that they had greater access to the core curriculum and core instruction, because what we were finding is that there wasn't a sufficient amount of integration during that core time. We also are ensuring that there is the correct staff to student ratio in those classrooms for the students. And the special education department has also evaluated some of the interventions that they have, and they have replaced some of those interventions that they have found less effective. And so those are 3 of the main strategies. In terms of the other groups, the common planning time teams at each of the school buildings are looking at each of the groups of students, both as a whole, but also by subgroups, and creating what we call cycles of inquiry to support how they're learning based upon their individual data. So in many cases, those plans are more individualized as their data suggests what their needs are.
Got it. Are we taking any, I was looking at RIDE's data as I was looking through this past weekend. Are we, well, as you'll see, even pre-takeover, the data is bad for students of color. As of recent, it's bad, and it's been bad historically for MLL students and disabled students as well. Are we thinking about taking, and I know you guys are doing really good with a lot of the approaches that you're currently taking, but are we trying to take any aggressive approach in making sure that we get these students caught up? Because it is a trend, and it's a trend all through Rhode Island, but I know with these communities, it's a trend where it's like we can't get them to, move the needle to get to that proficient level in ELA and math. It's like it's really, really difficult. And then when I do look at the white students, it's basically saying it has a lower number, but it's saying, well, clearly we're doing something right there. But when we're looking at the other races, it looks really, really bad. So are we taking any aggressive approaches to make sure that these other communities are able to really get caught up in reading and doing math on a grade level?
Yes. So with the MLO, I want to.
And that's difficult. I understand. The MLO
so I
piece
just
is
want to
very
make
difficult.
sure that we're not just looking at this data, because there are multiple data points that show us that what we are doing with our MLO population is working. So I just want to pull that out. Our differently abled, yes, it was an aggressive stance to basically change the way that we were grouping and categorizing and providing supports into the schools. I just want to name, we are struggling to find certified special education teachers to the number that we need. But the strategies that we have begun to take have been more aggressive than in the past, and we'll continue to look at those strategies and determine what we need to do. Some of the strategies we will be developing in terms of bringing them forward to you as we're planning for next year in our action planning as well. Part of the work also needs to be looking at cultural responsiveness and strategies around how we serve each of our student populations. And so part of this has to be professional development for our educators, not just a program or a tool, but also how are we providing professional learning to our educators. And I will say, one of the issues or barriers that we have in Providence that we need to attack is the limited amount or number of days that we have for professional learning for educators. It's probably one of the lowest numbers in the state. We have 1 day a year where we can have professional development with our teachers. We do provide professional development. Teachers attend it and they get paid for it, but it can't be required because it's after hours. So we have 1 day built in, that's a required day. So that is something we need to, I think, attack as part of our goals. That's going to require contractual conversations. It's also going to require financial conversations. So the way that we have addressed that is through the common planning time, the coaches, and the interventionists. Because teachers have to attend common planning time. We can reach teachers in common planning time. We can provide coaching in the classroom. And we can provide also professional learning during that common planning time. So we've been doing a significant amount of work on our lesson internalization and core instruction during that time. So since we don't have standalone days, we have created a way within our schedule and that common planning time and with our staffing by hiring interventionists and coaches to be able to, and our instructional support leaders, to be able to get into the schools during the day and work with the teachers in their classroom and in their common planning time.
Okay, and I know we have about 12 more slides. I don't want to take up too much time. When you spoke to special education teachers, are you speaking in general, or are you speaking to the specific subgroups that has a high need of special education teachers?
In general, across the state and the nation, there is a scarcity of special education certified teachers. So that's a national shortage, and Rhode Island and Providence are experiencing that shortage. So it is more challenging in severe and profound classrooms to find educators who are certified, but in general, special education teachers are a shortage area across the nation at this time.
Dr. Dillon, I have one insight and then a quick question. I know that, I know I spoke about this before, that while we definitely need to hold ourselves accountable for educating all of our children, for making sure that education is equitable, is also the systemic realities that we know that students' test scores are very much rooted in opportunities that are denied outside of school, and that a school alone is not going to fix structural inequity and racism, right? That is generations long. That doesn't mean we shouldn't try our hardest to do so, right? And so, my question is always going to come back to wellness and SEL and nutrition because, as you know, because you've talked about the support teams many a times, like it's so much more than academic strategies, even though that's very important, but it's the work that Dr. Onye does, it's the work that you all are doing to address the whole child outside of just academics. And then working with our legislators to push legislation that's equitable and continue to look at this as a structural issue versus a capacity issue of our children. I am interested to wonder, like, I don't know how you all have students check off the demographics, but the 2 or more races is notably higher than our Hispanic or Latino or African American students. And I'm just wondering, do we know what those 2 or more races are?
The way that the forms are and the way that we're required to report, it just says 2 or more. So however the student or their family identifies as 2 or more, that's up to them to select. We do have the box white, Hispanic, white, non-Hispanic, but other than that, it is 2 or more, and it's up to the family or the student, depending upon who's completing the form, to make that determination. So when the families register, the families are selecting that. Older students, like when they're doing their SAT or AP, they might be selecting that. But when the students come here for these grades, it would be the family during registration.
Thank you so much. And then just 2 quick more things. I know at one meeting we had talked, and I feel like Chairman Jones and we had talked a little bit about the district's capacity to track specifically African American students. And I know there was like we were advocating for that because check me if I'm wrong, Corey, but I feel like we were both on the same page about making sure that African American students that are Black Americans who were born here, who live here, and have no ties outside of the country often get kind of lumped in with other groups and get left behind in terms of data, and we just lose them. But we see them disproportionately impacted by poverty, by incarceration, by suspension. And so I'd want to further advocate for figuring out ways that we can't force people to identify in a certain way, but I think like sometimes the Black or African American sort of category, I think we lose students by not tracking African American, which is a specific, not only a race, but an ethnicity in America. And I think it's really important to name that. There was one more question and I can't remember what it was, so I'll hold there, but thank you, Dr. Dillon.
You're welcome. And I did bring your question forward regarding that because our data systems have to speak to state data systems. So I don't have an answer for you, but I do want you to know I heard your question. I'm trying to seek understanding.
Superintendent?
Dr. Dillon, can we also talk about one of the strategies that we did this year, for last year and this year, where if our students are not meeting the grade level expectation, we're not waiting to the end of the year to say XYZ, student XYZ failed. Now, one of the things that we're doing is quarterly, every time the students receive their report card, they get an individualized learning plan for that particular student. And if I fail or I'm chronically absent or whatever it is, my teachers have to look at it and realign it, check what's working, what's not working, and readjust the individual learning plans.
Yeah, that's correct. And we also have unit credit recovery now instead of waiting until the end of the year for the older students at the high school level. So we also have that, and we're working closely with RIDE on the promotion and doubt process, where students from the time they're in kindergarten, well, really first grade until 8th grade, if there is a year in which the school and the family believe that due to chronic absenteeism plus a lack of proficiency in math and ELA, that a student would benefit from doing the year over. We do have that opportunity through that new program called Promotion in Doubt, and we communicate with families on a regular basis.
All right, yeah, can we be brief? Go ahead, Chairman, and then Dr. Wilson.
Yeah, so touching on a little bit of what Angel was saying, what do you see as the limitations of the data? I know kind of what Angel said is kind of a good example, right? We know that African American students are more likely to be in the system from the beginning to the end, right? And so when you look at national data, you can see that students, African American students, have a gap between white students, but public education has cleared that gap, more. But the thing is that white students are doing better too, right? So of course that gap still exists, right? And so usually, national leaders say that's a good marker to kind of see how your district's doing, right? Because if a student's new into the district, it's not as easy to kind of identify. So what are the kind of data limitations, and like how could some of those kind of anecdotal experience speak to kind of the student gap? So an experience I had when I substituted at Alvarez was that a lot of my students would learn enough English and then they would start working, right? And I wouldn't, they would come in enough to not be chronically, or not to be in truancy, right? But, once they were able to get a job and they knew enough English, we lost them. And I had a similar experience going to school in Iowa. The farm boys were losing their farms and, they stopped coming to school. And at that school, much smaller, within weeks, they put up a building trades program. We're paying those students $15 an hour, and those students were staying in school, right? And actually, the grades went up because those students wanted to do the building trades program so bad, and it was half the day, and they had to have good grades to do it. So it also, increased our scores. And I know that we have a lot of programs like Hope High, the art integration, and a lot of good redesign work. So I'm curious, what are the kind of limitations we're not seeing from the data, and how does that kind of speak to some of the gaps between students that we may not currently be meeting?
Sure, and I'd be happy to come back and provide a more in-depth answer to that. But what I can tell you is that in addition to their proficiency data, we're also tracking graduation data. We're tracking how many students are entering and completing their CTE programs. We've adopted the new graduation regulations, which now allow us to give credit for work-based learning and allow us to create new plans for students who might have difficulty coming to school because they are the income winner in their home. So we are now allowed to create individual learning plans that work around the students' needs and support them in a much different way than we've ever been able to. So class of 2028 is the first year, the first graduating class for which these new regulations apply. So those are some of the ways that we're able to see students, as soon as they start to be potentially chronically absent, we're meeting with them, we're developing attendance plans, we're finding out the why of the absences, and then we're able to build these attendance plans with them. And I think that's why you're seeing, one of the reasons why you're seeing a decrease in our chronic absenteeism and an increase in our graduation rates, because we are now able to provide more individualized programs to meet the needs of students through our CTE programs, through our work-based learning, and through individual attendance plans based upon if they are the primary caregiver, if they are the primary income or an income driver in their home. They are now eligible for different plans that is starting in class of 2028.
Yeah, that's incredible to hear. And if there's anything that the board can do to support that work, whether it's, talking to folks and businesses in the community, let us know. I speak for all of us when I say we'd be very happy to help that work. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I just actually sort of a follow-up question on Vice President Newman's question, which is, so the restriction on how we think about categories of race and ethnicity is that we need to be able to communicate with the state. And presumably, I'm guessing the state needs to be able to communicate with the federal government.
And DHS and all, yeah.
Which is probably using the same racial categories established by the Office of Management and Budget for the census.
Yes.
So it's sort of a fixed thing that's not particularly helpful or doesn't always map well into reality. But I think there might be a way, maybe this is something that our data folks could think through.
Yes.
To usefully disaggregate those categories for our purposes. And it should still work as long as we can then re-aggregate them into the categories that match the, you know what I mean?
So I brought the concern and the question forward, so we are looking, I just don't have an answer yet.
Okay, great.
But
Yeah,
I heard it and brought it forward, I just don't have an answer yet.
This is something I've been public.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that possible to,
We can get an answer and bring it forward, I just don't have an answer yet, but I did hear it, and so we're looking at what it might look like internally. Is it even possible, because our system is directly connected to the state? It's not a separate system. It's separate, but it uploads nightly into the state. Right, and so the data language has to be the same. So I don't know if there's a parallel system. I brought it to the data team. I brought it to our friends at RIDE. It's something that we need to dive into deeper. And so I heard you, I agree with you, I just don't have any answer yet.
and board members, if you have questions throughout the remaining of the slides, just jot it down and we'll get to it at the very end, okay? Okay, go ahead.
All right, well, we're in science. I just want to remind everyone that science, the assessment has changed over time. So we used to be measured by NECAP, and now we're assessed by the next generation science assessment. Change over time, we began at 11% in 2018, we're at 14% now. We have the subgroups down below for you, and the students are measured in 3 domain areas: earth and space, life science, and physical science. You can see that it's fairly consistent across the three domains. Science is something that we need to spend some attention to. It's only assessed in grades 5, 8, and 11. And so what we're finding is we have new science curriculum at the high school called Open Science. So we have new science curriculum that the teachers are learning and the students are learning. So that is important to note. At the elementary school and middle school, we use something called the Amplify. The middle school has built-in science. It's as part of the course, so they go to math, science, English, and social studies. And then at the elementary, the students have a block of time each day where they would participate in science. It's very, very clear from the data that our students need more time with the hands-on components of science and the engineering components of science. And that is showing very, very clearly. It's definitely an area where we need to engage in more professional learning with the teachers in all of our grades, not just in the tested grades, because it's the grades that are not tested that lead up to that proficiency and success in those tested grades. But more importantly, the skills that we learn in science, the scientific thinking process, is one that benefits you regardless of your career path, right? So the ability to ask critical questions, to look at evidence, to make informed decisions, to apply potential solutions, to revisit those solutions, and to come back to a better solution. That we do every single day in every career that we're in. And we know that these are areas that our students are not demonstrating strong proficiency in and need continued work. So I just wanted to also say that the opportunity in science for interdisciplinary is also extremely strong. And we are trying to put opportunities in the curriculum for that interdisciplinary for the informational reading, which we saw was an area of need in the RICAS ELA, the writing and the vocabulary, right, as well as the mathematics. So that was really quick. I hope that summary was helpful. I just would say with our new curriculum and our new structure in terms of our schedules at our elementary and middle school, we're seeing some promising practices, but science is an area of need and growth. And I'm passing it over to McKenna. She can take some time.
All right, I'm going to talk about high school and SAT reading or ELA and math. So what you can see for as far as SAT ELA, we have made some modest progress. I'd say we've been steady the past couple of years, and just some modest progress in ELA since 2017, 2018. One thing to note though, in the 2022-23 school year, the SAT changed. So it moved from the paper-based SAT to the digital SAT. And so the format changed and the way students take the assessment changed, but actually the makeup, the composition of it changed. So we kind of considered that like another baseline year because there was so much change in districts across the country saw a pretty big change in how their students did, and we just didn't have the data. College Board didn't have the data, Khan Academy didn't have the data to even say what works, what's effective, how do we prepare. And so we've been on really at the ground level with Khan Academy and College Board since that change. But I just wanted to note that you'll that in 2022-23 the test changed fundamentally. No, that's okay. You're gonna see some consistency with our analysis of our 3rd and 8th grade ELA. So evidence-based reading and writing scores have stabilized but remain below the national median. Our students do better in the command of evidence tasks when they're exposed to text-dependent analysis routines earlier. So Dr. Dillon mentioned that we're focusing on text-based writing, really focusing on that this year, and that's because of the data that we see, not only in high school, but also in our younger grades. Syntax and grammar, so like the structure of a sentence, subscores improved following increased writing practice in upper grades. We still have a long way to go. If you look school by school, you would see that our students still struggle there. Argumentative writing remains the lowest domain. Students struggle to sustain claims of textual justification. One thing to note, the actual writing is not part of the SAT school day assessment. We don't do an actual writing portion on the SAT, but writing is just like in RICAS and some of the questions, like the language questions. Writing is measured and assessed through reading passages and questions that are asked for those on those. And then access to dual enrollment in AP English coursework shows a possible correlation with gains in evidence-based reading and writing. And then the ELA test is actually those sections called reading and writing. And then, so you'll see the column, the performance score band, and then reading and writing is the actual test. And then information and ideas, craft and structure, expression of ideas, and standard English conventions. Those are the domains that are measured on the reading and writing section of the SAT. Just for your own context, the cut score for proficiency for the SAT for ELA is 480. And so right within, so that the bottom 4 bands would be considered proficient, and then it breaks it down so teachers can work with students on what are they able to do, what's the next thing we need to learn to be able to do in order to improve and increase in the bands. This is out of order, so this is the math analysis, but I'm going to skip down to the data slide and I'll go back to the analysis. So this is our SAT math data. You'll see that we were at 14% proficient last year. We stayed the same the 2 years in a row with a modest increase from the years prior. And we've got some work to do in that, as you can see. I'm going to scroll up to our analysis of the SAT math. So we improved slightly after the pandemic, but again, we've stayed pretty consistent. Algebra 1 and 2 content mastery exceeds geometry, indicating gaps in spatial and applied reasoning. Students struggle with multivariable systems and function interpretation, which are key college readiness indicators. Those are the courses they're going to need to take in college at like the kind of like the entry level courses. There is targeted Khan Academy alignment, and so the schools that are using the Khan Academy digital SAT prep courses, using it intentionally, I think I would use that word, see stronger performance than schools that aren't. And we've been really, that's been a major push for us the past, this is the 3rd year now. And advanced coursework participation strongly predicts higher math scores. So having those early acceleration pathways, having ways for students to take more advanced math courses is critical to student performance. Just skipping over that slide because we did it. And then these are the domains that are measured or assessed on the SAT. So we have algebra, advanced math, problem solving and data analysis, and geometry and trigonometry. And the score band, or the cut score, I should say, for proficiency for math is 530. And then we have SAT, math, and ELA by subgroup on slide 24. So that's what we have for our high school for SAT. The next slides, I'm gonna pass back over to Dr. Gillen to talk about overall accountability and some next steps.
I think it's only fair. Does any board member have questions about high school SAT? Board member Mercado, Chairwoman Severa.
I just have one question. For AP and dual, is that offered in all high school or just certain high school?
AP. All high schools. Yep.
And then on the slide that says economically disadvantaged, is that kids on foster care and,
They might be,
they might-
so for this, it's primarily free and reduced lunch,
okay.
yes.
My question is for slide 21, you had stated that there's targeted Khan Academy alignment and in-school SAT prep. Is there in-school SAT prep offered in all high schools for every student, or is there like programs? How would it?
That's a good question. It looks like a few different things. So yes, the answer is yes. There's access to Khan Academy digital SAT prep for every single high school student. So actually grades 6 through 12, we have Khan Academy for all students. We've been working with our schools, this is the third year with the digital SAT prep course in Khan Academy to make sure that they have a plan for how students will have access to and work in both the digital SAT prep math and reading and writing courses. There's specific skills, like it's a pretty detailed plan, and then we at the district level can see all the data. And so Khan Academy, they're excellent partners with us. So that's available to all, and we plan with them. Some schools like Central High School actually just came in second place nationally in the Khanathlon, it's called. They've done it, I think, 4 years in a row, Khan Academy, and it's a national challenge and for math. So they came in second, and it's not just time on Khan Academy, because time does matter, but it's like, what are you doing with that time, right? You can run a video for an hour, but if you're just running a video, that's not the same as leveling up skills. So they won, they came in second for leveling up skills in math. So PCTA and JSEC also were on the leaderboard for several weeks, but ultimately Central ended up coming in second nationally. So that wrapped up last week. We have also, every year we have schools that we work, they use some of their funding to bring in Cambridge. So Cambridge SAT prep, they do more, so Khan Academy does more of the content. We're like, what do you need to know in order to answer the questions on the SAT? What's the content? Cambridge does a little bit of that, but they do more test strategy. So like when you're reading this question, what's the best way to attack it? And so we've seen great results with Cambridge. We've used them for the past 3 years. There is a cost associated, like Khan Academy is free. Cambridge we pay for, our schools pay for, but they come in and they send in-person or hybrid tutors to work with groups of students on that. Mount Pleasant has used them, JSEC, Alvarez, I think most of our schools have, and there's a plan again in February to bring them back in. So those are 2 ways. We have camps, we have February vacation, we had it, we have camps after school, Saturdays. There's just a lot of ways we know that our students need access to that.
I guess follow-up to that is, I know that Khan Academy is available at their plans, but is there like specific allotted time in the school day that they have to, during advisory, whenever there's like a specific period that they have to be working on this?
So we work with the schools and we partner with them. So one thing that schools did this year, many of them have an SAT prep course, which is usually about a semester. It's not a full year, where they devote time for all students to work on Khan Academy. So there are some schools that have a digital have an SAT prep course. And then we also work with our teachers to work it into like a station rotation model within their core classes. So we've done a lot of work with aligning our core curriculum and what's covered, like what standards are covered, what lessons are, like what topics and skills are being addressed in a lesson. Where does that line up to Khan Academy, and what Khan Academy lessons can you bring into that? They do it as part of their core as well. Oh yeah, and advisory, yeah. Yep.
I feel like every student in the district is gonna hate me for asking this question, but I'm gonna ask it anyways. Homework, is that at the high school level? I just remember going, doing loads of homework, and I'm not advocating for that whatsoever. And also in terms of reinforcement and memory, I'm just wondering like where the district is in terms of homework at the high school level, and is that something that is required? Is it kind of optional? Like what's up with homework?
Well, I'll answer them. I'm probably gonna end up passing it to Dr. Dillon, but this is something we talk with our teachers a lot about, and our school leaders, because homework, if it's intentional and it can be harmful, more harmful than helpful. So think about like when I was in school and I was a kid, right? We'd go home with like 100 math problems or 50 math problems, or we had 3 hours a night of homework. But if I went home with a misconception, like I didn't remember the right way to do it, and so I was doing my homework and doing it the way I remembered, I'm actually etching in the wrong way to do it into my brain. So unless the teacher catches that and corrects that, they have 24 hours to correct that misperception before it's permanent. So homework can be a great practice, right? And it can be a good extension, but it has to be super intentional. And so that's what we talk to our teachers about all the time, because if we're not revisiting it and not using it to inform instruction literally the next morning, then we could be doing more harm than good.
I like that. That's the first time I heard it.
I'm quoting and citing Dr. Dillon.
There's actually meta studies. John Haley has conducted over thousands and thousands and thousands of studies compiled that shows that homework has either no impact, effect size less than a 0.4. 0.4 it means that a student can grow a year in a year's time. Anything below that is less than that. And anything in the negative means that it could actually be harming students, right? And so when we're looking at homework, it's very low. And in some grades and some ages, it's actually negative. And it is partially because misconceptions. Brain science tells us that if we don't undo a misconception within 24 hours, the student owns it, and it's really, really difficult to undo that. It also is one of the philosophies is that if a teacher does not have time to give feedback on that homework, then it's not a good use of anybody's time. And so really being intentional about if you are going to give homework, then you have to be sure that you can give the student feedback within 24 hours. 24 hours is the magic number within brain science as well. And so we're having conversations about that with educators, because if I give you, now, and I'm not talking about reading, playing games, math games, that all should be happening on the regular, right? Students should be reading, parents should be reading to them, they should be playing math games. I'm not talking about that kind of thing, but I'm talking about here's a page out of your workbook, go home and do it kind of homework. Students should also be writing. So if they're practicing their writing, if they're continuing to develop their essays, all of those things are wonderful uses of time. But if I give you a worksheet and you already don't know how to do it, you're probably going to be learning a misconception. And then if I don't give you feedback on it, there's no correction to that misconception. And so that has to be extremely, extremely intentional. So we say, when we're talking traditional homework, we're talking like worksheet homework on, all right, you did the stoichiometry and chemistry, now go home and do the stoichiometry on your own, even though I know you already don't get it, right? That's not good. If the student's in that just right zone where some extra practice is good for them, that's a perfect homework for that student. So it has to be extremely intentional in terms of who is receiving the homework and when are they receiving the feedback.
Thank you so much for that. And the second hot button that, again, PPSD students, I love you, I swear. Cell phones. I'm just wondering about just like if you all, I don't know much about like when, so I feel like when I was in high school, they just like everyone started getting them. But did you all see like some type of big dip in like academics, like when cell phones came into schools? And I'm just wondering how, so when we talk about the pandemic as like being a moment, but I'm like, were cell phones a pandemic too?
That's an interesting concept. I'm not sure if we have any way to take that out of the equation by itself. What I can tell you is there's new legislation. And so we will be coming to you about cell phone policy changes for September. which the policies do not allow cell phones in schools, where the students can access them, right? So, we know many students are going to bring a cell phone to school because that's how their parents stay connected to them and things like that. But the legislation says during the school day, the student can't have access to that. So right now, we're trying to think through what that looks like and how we move that forward. It's an interesting question because right now, when we walk through classrooms, the reason why we see cell phones in use by some students are in the moment translation, like things like that. We're not necessarily, when we're doing our walkthroughs, seeing cell phones being misused. In some schools, the teachers have already put in practices and protocols with the principal on how cell phones are handled. So yes, in September, students will not have access to their cell phones during the school day. But I can get research, but I don't have Providence correlation to share with you at this time, because there are many factors that happen around the same time, like you said, that would be very difficult for us to know specifically how it impacted Providence data.
Absolutely. No, thank you. And I'm gonna look myself to like social media. I mean, because but I also don't want to be like that elder who's always like social media is the devil, and it's like it's messing up our kids. But I do wonder about that, and I appreciate that. I'm also gonna look into it. So it does feel like a big moment that happened. That I'm just wondering how kids across the nation and the world were just impacted.
There is a lot of, there are many studies actually that are showing the disconnect it's creating between person to person. There's also misinformation and how students are using that information. There's also harm that comes in from cyber. So there's a lot of problematic elements. There are some also positive elements, but I think the legislation is very, very clear, not during the school day.
Any other questions?
Okay. So the rest of, I did want to get back to Chairwoman Newman. I forgot to mention, and I think it might be nice for Sandra Stewart to come in and speak to the board about all of the different SEL programs and opportunities we have. We have many partners. We have David Health, for example, and different partners with different agencies across the city and state for social emotional well-being and services. And so I think it'd be really, I would like to recommend maybe an opportunity for that. And I think that is really going to be the focus and work of the new school-based mental health school board subcommittee. So that might be another opportunity, if not here or there, to have Sandra Stewart come in and talk in more depth about all of the different SEL opportunities that we have and partnerships that we have. So I should have said that before, but I want to bring it up before I get into the end of the presentation.
As long as it ties to the goals. Really quick too, Dr. Dillon, are we offering financial literacy in our high schools?
It's required for graduation.
Okay, because I was at a meeting, correct me if I'm wrong, ladies. I was at a school and I believe they said classical was not offering that anymore.
It's required for graduation? It's required.
They offer it within their their advisory curriculum is a financial literacy curriculum. So financial literacy doesn't have to be a standalone course. It can be embedded in other within other courses, or they can address it in other areas, in other ways. And classical uses their advisory class across the entire year to address the financial literacy. So they don't, if you pulled a report in Skyward of like the courses offered at classical, you may not see financial literacy listed as a standalone course because it doesn't have to be per the regulations.
Am I correct?
Yeah, no, definitely. There was some students who were like, this class got pulled and we really valued it, and what's going on with that? We'll find out.
They were probably speaking about just the opportunity to have it as a standalone credit bearing class or as a requirement satisfied through advisory, I think is what they do at classical. So it's like both and.
The students can select different ways to take financial literacy. Some of our schools give different options, other schools there's one option. But all students have to have access to it, and all students have to show proficiency for their graduation requirement.
Well, that kind of answers my question. I was gonna ask, the schedule class versus having it as part of advisory curriculum, does the advisory teacher actually teach it? Because I think that may be where it feels different for students, if they're on a computer, kind of just reading on their own, taking quizzes and going like that, or someone in front of them actually facilitating discussions. I think that may be why it might feel different for them. So I was just wondering, is it, you said it's different.
Different schools, yes, some schools offer a choice, so a student can take an online course, can take a course where it's embedded, they take a standalone. It really depends on the school and how the leadership team in that school has decided to offer it.
And if you guys, whenever you get a chance, just give us some specifics on class.
Possible, sure, we will do that. Okay, slide 25, superintendent went over largely in his talking point, so I'm not sure if you want to spend much time there. I think the bold on the bottom is really the critical piece, that as we're tracking our TAP goals, the number of 2-star or higher increased from 23 to 25 schools. So that's moving toward the TAP goal for 2030. And then, but we also wanted to know if we were reaching more students in 2-star or higher schools, because the number of our schools have changed over time. So we really wanted to look at percentage of students instead of just the number of schools. And so the number of students in 2-star or higher schools has increased from 55% of our students to 64% of our students. And I think that's the more important number at this point because it's the number of schools that have changed. And then the final part were some next steps. These next steps will be expanded as we go into the budget and we start talking to you about strategy connected to the board goals. So these are pre-budget requests, pre-board goal finance conversation next steps. So for the rest of this year, we talked about tier 1. We have put into effect small group reading rotations in the classrooms. We have put into effect common writing prompts that we are measuring and working on with students. We talked about Mosaic and Mosaicos, which is the phonics work. So we have the phonics screeners and oral reading fluency probes. We have the teaching cycles. We talked about lesson internalization and the coaching cycles, which is really critical work. That work has been phenomenal. And then we also talked about integrating the vocabulary instruction. So that's grade 3. That's what we're doing now. As we close out the school year, entering from mid-year to rest of year. Grade 4 in math, we're really trying to make sure that the problem-solving routines are being implemented in the classroom the way they were intended. And also adding in the small group math intervention blocks. We talked about the math discourse, bi-weekly teacher collaboration sessions with that common planning time, and then supporting visual models and manipulatives. And then in grade 8, we already talked about most of this, text-based writing cycles, the explicit instruction in academic vocab, the writing calibration. What we found was that although the students were doing common prompts, teachers were scoring and giving feedback differently. And so we needed to do what we call calibration to ensure that we all understood what the rubric was trying to measure and that the students were getting the feedback that aligned to that in a consistent way. So that was work that we realized we needed to kind of double down on. The discussion protocols, and then we talked about Mastery Connect and how we're able to really hone in on those standards. And
before we move on, can you just do me a favor? Can you explain on page 25, 6 schools increased their star rating, 3 schools decreased their star rating, 1 school received the star rating for the first time. That part, the 1 school.
A Venture is now an official school, and so it received its first star rating because the school has to be in operation for a certain number of years before it gets its first star rating. No problem. And then I mentioned this to Dr. Williams, but the last time we talked about what's the difference between phonemic awareness and phonics. So if you click on your digital copy, you will see a chart like this, which really just kind of breaks down when do we teach, what grades, or when do we teach phonemic awareness? How does that then lead into phonics? What's the difference between the two? I just thought it would be helpful when I'm talking about different things to start adding resources like this. So next time I'll do the math coherence chart, but I thought this was an easy way to see the difference between phonemic awareness and phonics because they sound so similar. But phonemic awareness is really getting those sound skills ready so that you can enter into phonics and decoding and reader reading skills.
Any other questions? Dr. Williamson was dedicated. He came off a trip and made sure he was at tonight's meeting, so I want to recognize that.
Terribly jet lagged.
But thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
I know. We're going to go to item 7.1, adjourn meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting? Motion been made by Chairman Sarah. Do I have a second? Seconded by Board Member Mercado. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any noes, any abstention? The motion passes. Have a good night.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely.